Hello and welcome to Outlaw Bookseller. I'm Stephen E. Andrews. I'm a writer, bookseller, collector, occasional psychogeographer. I went to Rough Trade in Bristol where I got this exclusive of Nico's Drama of Exile. Now this came out about 6 months ago and I did look at it on the website and I thought about it because it was 30 quid and it's quite expensive. But I'm a big Nico fan and I want to talk about Nico first before I do the unboxing. Of course, Nico was born in 1938 as Krista Pafjan, and according to who you believe, I've not read the new biography. There is a new biography out, which I'll show you on the screen in a moment. But if you look at other sources, there's Richard Witt's Life and Lives of an Icon, which is a fantastic book. I think it's still in print with a pink cover. That's a great one. And if you look at the Nico Icon documentary, you know, she lied an awful lot and elaborated on her background and what have you. But we basically know that she was Germanic or Eastern European, some say Hungarian. Her father was in the Wehrmacht. She, you know, sort of basically was a small child during World War II. Of the people who I call the Romantics, the godfathers of punk rock, the people like the Velvet Underground, the Doors, and the original Alice Cooper group, the Stooges, and then people like David Bowie, Roxy Music, Hawkwind, and then we get on to punk rock and people like the Stranglers, Magazine, Japan, Ultravox. These sort of very Eurocentric artists who cleaved as much to the weight of European history and culture as it did to American forms of rock and roll. She was the first, she was the oldest. Her and Jet Black from the Stranglers were born in the same year. And of course, Nico's music is very difficult. It tends not to be sort of conventional rock music, though I describe her as a rock musician. And she did some great avant-garde stuff. Obviously, she was famous for being the chanteuse of the Velvet Underground, where she sang 3 songs on one album. There are a couple of other songs that she did with them live, which were never recorded in the studio. And she recorded 5 or 6 solo albums, all of them with John Cale, apart from this one. So we'll have a little look at this now. And of course, Nico was a model and she did lots of high fashion shoots in the sort of early to mid 50s for, you know, Chanel and the sort of big sort of fashion house labels. I'm just going to get this out of this rather noisy, it's not shrink, it's just a little bag. There we go. And there's a Rough Trade sticker on there. I'll see if I can get that off later. We'll have to see how that goes. And of course, she appeared on album covers. She appeared on a Bill Evans album cover, and she did some acting. She's in Fellini's Dolce Vita. She used to spend a lot of time in Positano in Italy, which is somewhere I'm very fond of. She was a real icon. Of course, an icon is a anagram of Nico. So she was an icon first of all, and the story about how she got into the Velvets is well documented, so I won't go into it here. But around about that time, she had liaisons and relationships with Bob Dylan, Jimmy Page, was on her first, I think he produced or plays on the first single, Brian Jones as well. She had a relationship with him. And then of course, she sort of hung out with Lou Reed and John Cale, and I mean romantically in most of these cases as well. Iggy Pop, and you know, she had Jim Morrison, who encouraged her to write her own songs and to develop her poetry. So, you know, thanks Jim for that, because, you know, you really brought her on. And again, Cale obviously and Reed, you know, played a big part, especially John Cale, who being Welsh, I naturally adore, and seen John in concert many times. I never saw Nico, sadly. So this is Drama of Exile, and we'll just have a quick look at it because I'm rabbiting on. And this is a coloured vinyl reissue on Modern Harmonic, whoever they are. Let's have a quick look at this. Oh, this is nice. And this is a red and black marble transparent vinyl. Look at that, fantastic. We'll just get the glare off that. Absolutely amazing looking record, really sort of smoky and dangerous looking, a bit like the woman herself, because of course she was She was a heroin addict, as we all know, and you know, quite sort of the ice queen, as we used to say. So that's that. That's really beautiful. And I'm just going to curate that. I'm going to put it in a black polylined inner because that's what I go with. Covers 33. And the white one is a bit naff, isn't it, really? You want a record like this, you want a black one. Slide that into there and into the sleeve. And of course, this is interesting because this is the only album without Kale. Now, I've had this on CD for a long time, and I became aware that there were two versions. This is the original version, recorded, I think, in 81. And it has Middle Eastern musicians on it. And you know, apparently it was re-recorded. Now I've got a CD which is over in a corner over there, and I've not played it for a couple of years, even though I do like it. But I'm convinced my CD is the same one, so I will have to dust off the turntable and play this one to see if there actually is a difference between this and the CD. I'm not so certain that there is a difference. So it's got extensive liner notes on the back, and of course this is her most rocky album, and it has cover versions of Waiting for the Man on there. And of course she did a version of that with Bauhaus, didn't she, on their 12-inch single of the Ziggy Stardust Third Uncle covers EP hit single that the old gothy boys had. And it's also got a version of Heroes, the David Bowie song, and they're great. For the version of Heroes particularly is really, really good. And you know, this does have quite a Middle Eastern feel, even in the version I've heard, which might be different to this one. I need to check it out. And you know, it's absolutely fantastic record, despite the absence of John Cale. Probably her most conventional record, but for her it's not. It does step out what she normally did, because she normally did things without drums or pulses. There'd be percussion, there'd be the harmonium. And this, she's more like a singer fronting a band, which is really interesting. And there was a sort of nod to that in the film with Trine Dehome a few years ago, which I don't think Nico ever jumped around like that. You know, maybe she did a bit with the Velvets, but certainly not in the 80s. And we just got to love Trine because she's gorgeous and such a great actress. And of course, Nico, you know, she was as the Ice Queen and as the queen of Eurocentric, romantic, you know, Western tradition rock. You know, she was just amazing, incredible songs, and that voice which came from the north. You know, people talk about Joy Division, and gosh, you know, this is the real stuff. You know, if you are European and you have that heavy Nordic thing in your soul, which I very much have. I love anything European and serious and beetle-browed and philosophical. You know, if you like your Nietzsche and what have you, this is very much the thing. And of course, she died in 1987. It was ironic because, you know, in the days of the Dolce Vita, she spent a lot of time on the Mediterranean. And as I said, she's got to Positano a lot on holiday, and she was on Ibiza. And of course, she was taking a ride on a bicycle and she fell off, cracked a skull, hemorrhage, and she died. She was still quite young, so 38 to 47. But there's a kind of emblematic thing about that to me, because she died in the year when the second Summer of Love happened. And I mentioned this in relation to a garbage unboxing that I'm shooting today, which will go up at a different time. And, you know, really that was when rock music then seemed to have really lost something. You know, the sort of indie thing, the landfill indie thing had started. The Smiths had been dominant in British pop music for about 4 years. Great band, you know, but they seemed to be less experimental and interesting stuff getting in the charts. There was some good goth music. A lot of the sort of early post-punk stuff had never become as big as it probably should have been commercially. And, you know, David Bowie was lost in the commercial wilderness at that point as well, barring a few tracks here and there. And, you know, we didn't really know where things were going. Rock music has sort of been around since about 1965 when the Velvets and the Doors formed. I think that's when rock music really separated itself out from rock and roll and pop music. And I'll talk about that in a different video. And Nico's death was sort of emblematic. It was the end, really, to me, of that whole movement that began with the Velvets, the Doors, the Stooges, Alice Cooper, those proto-punk, proto-glam people, then the true glam people like Lou Reed, David Bowie, you know, Iggy Pop in his solo days, you know, and Alice Cooper and what have you, and Steve Harley, Cockney Rebel. And then, you know, you had that period where there were the bands that time forgot, in between, say, 74 and 77. Then you had punk rock, the original true punk rock with this Eurocentric feel, and, you know, and post-punk, which often cleaved to European modernist experimentalism. And, you know, Siouxsie and the Banshees, for example, huge debt to Nico, you know, and goth music per se. I mean, come on, you know. And it's really, really sad because you know, her death was fitting in a way at that time. It's a shame, you know, it would have been nice if she could have had some more money and enjoyed a more pleasant life. And obviously she had her son, Ari, who was fathered by Alain Delon, or at least that's the story. And, you know, he has never sort of accepted that and what have you. She really was an important figure, musically, culturally, and in the iconography of, you know, the modern. And you know, I worship her. I think she's really important. And, you know, she's like a true original, you know, there's nobody else like her. So that's Drama of Exile. If you've never heard it, do pick it up. It's really good. As I say, I'm looking forward to playing this to see whether it is different to my CD. You know, it's an absolute joy to have this. As I say, I think on the website when it first came out, it was about 30 quid. They had money off yesterday at Rough Trade. They'd reduced this one. So I got it for about 24, which was fantastic. What a beautiful record. And, you know, Krista, you know, you're no longer with us. And it's very, very sad. But we have your wonderful, wonderful records to sort of look back on. And if you're going to read about Nico, as I say, read the books I mentioned. I'm going to read the new biography soon. There's another great book by a guy called James Young, who was a keyboard player for a while, called Songs They Never Play on the Radio. So do check that out as well, because that's fantastic. This is Outlaw Bookseller for Reading List Rock, looking at the intersections between music and literature. Bye for now, and please subscribe. Thanks a lot.